Hello, everybody, and welcome to Smartcat webinar series. My name is Kate, and I'm an event marketing manager here at Smartcat. Today, we're going to have a presentation by Anton Voronov on how you can grow and localize your business with connected translation. Before we start, let me give you some technical and organizational details. First of all, everyone's lines are muted to cut down any noise. We are making the recording of this presentation and we will send it out tomorrow. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. We will have a questions and answer session right after the presentation. So if it's clear, let's start, and I'm handing the microphone over to Anton.
Hi, everyone. All right, so as Kate mentioned, thanks for joining us today. We are talking about different ways of localization and growing your business actually with connected translation. Before we actually get too technical or explaining how actually this can work, let us take a look at the context and what's going on in the world around us. First of all, before we start, why we're actually speaking of localization and translation, and why is it important for business? On this topic, my favorite piece of information, which is with us for quite some time, it was developed, I believe, more than 10 years ago by Common Sense Advisory, is a can't read, won't buy concept, and it only keeps developing. So this diagram shows us an example of how likely will the consumer buy a good from a website which has the product descriptions in English, but at the same time the person is not speaking English. So we see that the probability is not that high. Another interesting number, which was later originating from this research, is that providing the information in the native language of your potential buyer actually increases the probability of conversion and purchase twice, which is a huge number. I mean, there are no many tools which can allow you increase your conversions twice. So this is true for e-commerce and for selling goods online, but you can easily expand this concept to other parts of your business, because basically any communication with your potential or existing customer is affected by language and by the level of understanding you provide to your counterpart. So translating user manuals, product descriptions, being able to communicate via chats or other modern ways of dealing with information is really vital to being on the same page with your customers and your users. So another part of the story is the explosive growth of the content. So humanity, there's an interesting concept of how much information does humanity creates, right? So and it's measured on how often do we double the amount of information we possess. 100 years ago, humanity was increasing the amount of information which we have probably every 50 years, 2 times. Now we increase the information we possess by 2 times almost every year, and this is only accelerating. This just gives you an understanding of how much information do we usually generate. You can just imagine that during the upcoming year, we will, as a humanity, create more information that was created during all our past history. So this is really amazing. And this really tiny number we have on the screen right now is the amount of information which is actually professionally localized. So it's only a tiny fraction, and this is just basically to the lack of professional translators to localize all this wave of information. Another thing is which is useful to understand, is that the amount of languages involved into active economy is growing. That's because of new countries are joining global marketplace. New parts of our world are getting more and more connected, which brings us to the situation when to reach 90% of the consumers and internet users. In 2001, we needed only 13 languages. In 2013, it already required 21 languages. Nowadays, it's close to 50 languages, and this amount is only growing. So this is why it's important to really keep pace and understand that the situation with translation and localization is getting more and more sophisticated and complicated. This slide represents another concept I like very much, that basically nowadays every company is a media company, because we produce so many pieces of content. We produce so much content. It is also spread across a lot of communication channels. So here you can see the amount of content transactions happening globally on different platforms during just 60 seconds. So every minute, it's millions and thousands of posts and transactions. So this is a huge flow, and nowadays every business is involved in it. So there should be a way to deal with it, right? Because otherwise you can be dragging behind. Another thing we're dealing with is that all the components of the business operations right now, including accounting, including creating tax, including manufacturing goods, all these processes are getting more and more connected, which means that as a businesses, you probably expect such experience from content creation and content translation processes, which means that you really want to be creating, updating your content and localizing it into multiple languages in a single content flow. This is what we call a connected translation concept. And we will get into a little bit more details later. So let's take a look who is affected in terms of the industries. Mostly, it's actually safe to say that every industry is affected by it, almost every industry. But now we just see on the screen those who are struggling the most. Marketing and communications obviously has involved heavily into content creation and production workflow in communications with customers and users. Online retail, because it's a huge wave of content, hundreds, thousands, sometimes millions of items are sold, updated, and added to online marketplaces. It's very difficult to deal with localizing such amount of content efficiently. Online gaming, because with gaming, the easiest way to grow your business is actually after you created a successful piece of gaming software, is actually going global and providing it in different countries. Information technology, and it's important to understand that nowadays even manufacturing companies are getting more and more involved into information technology, because they have to develop software which runs on the electronic items they develop, for example, or they have to deal with manufacturers which are on the other side of the world. And to deal with it efficiently, even manufacturing companies are turning into information technology companies. Education, a lot of education is going online now, which is a huge amount of content which needs to be maintained, localized. Manufacturing, I already mentioned that even manufacturing companies are getting involved into information technology, and all the development cycles are shrinking. So basically every industry is affected. And that would be interesting to know, by the way, what industry or what area of business you kind of are from. So I would ask Kate now to launch a poll here for us to be able to see the results and the distribution, and that would be great if you can click on that.
Yes, please. If you choose
Right.
other, could you specify in the chat box which industry are you from? Thanks. Mm-hmm. I think we've done, yeah? And done. Oh, it's still on.
Yep. Looks like the
Okay,
majority.
let's close it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, actually,
So,
the majority is from the other industry.
yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah, so
yeah,
half of us is from
it's
other
hard to list
industries.
all of them here. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, we have people from information technology, from marketing and communications. So, all right. So, what actually are the challenges and the pain points all these industries are facing? The main and the most painful are probably high time to market, because time to market is crucial. Things are being developed and delivered very fast these days, so you can't be slow on this. And being able to provide all the product descriptions, all the necessary information, all the support materials is just necessary to launch a product. So you can easily hit issues with delivering on time your products to the market if you can't write and translate content. Another issue that content is being constantly updated. It's not like static, right? If you have a product description, it most likely will evolve. If you have an online product, say you're a SaaS company, and you develop a product like continuously, which means that you're updating your product description also online and in real time. And you have to deal with it, right? So you have to build something which allows you to translate continuously. And another thing is that manual steps can really become process bottlenecks. I already mentioned the case of e-commerce, when there's like hundreds and thousands product items can be added to a web catalog during just one day. And just adding this amount of content might be a huge thing to do. But imagine then going ahead and exporting this into some editable format, say Excel spreadsheet or huge XML, then sending it for quotation to your vendor or to your internal translation team. This can really create a bottleneck for a process which requires quick turnaround. And that's actually the pain points we target, and we're going to be demoing today how this can be how we can overcome this in the case of website translation. And before we get into this, let's see what companies actually do when they hit this kind of challenges, and when they still need to build a connected processes to deliver connected experience. So there are many examples. These are most probably one of the brightest. So these companies are building it themselves. So you can go ahead and invest in building a system which natively integrates with all your IT resources. Say you're a development company and you're using some kind of content management software to create product descriptions, and then you are dealing with manufacturers. You also have websites, you also have support team, which is dealing with customer support requests. So what you can do is actually build a system which integrates with all these pieces of your software and with all content processes, and support the best localization process for you. These companies did that. And it works very well, I gotta say. So after you build a process which is very customized, which is connected to every piece of workflow you need it to interact with, then it most probably will function very good for you. The downside of this approach is that these companies are investing millions and in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars into building and then maintaining this process. So what we see as a valuable step for the market is making these tools like really available, and with you not having to invest this amount of money and this amount of trial and error process before you actually have a continuous localization process running. What I mean by connected translation and by continuous process is represented here. So it's basically, we see 5 major components, starting from connectivity, which allows us to be constantly connected and in continuous interaction with content repositories, no matter what content repository you use. It might be a website, might be a product management software, it might be a code repository if you're a software company. Then it goes into management. After we have the content, we need to create the process which feeds this content. We need to have the necessary technology. You want to deal with translation memories. You want to deal with terminology management. So you need to like manage this process. Then there's a component of scalability, because building a process is just the first step. When the amount of content you translate and localize grows, you need to be able to add more people to your team, to add more languages. It's better that you don't have to rebuild all the components of your workflow or change anything significant and reinvest a lot of money and effort into it. Then it goes to payments. Translation industry is still relying a lot on human effort. So even after you applied your translation memories, and probably for some pieces of content, it's more or less safe to start applying highly customized machine translation engines. It's best to use human post-editing after that, but then you have to deal with actually paying all these freelancers if you're using freelancers, paying vendors if you're using vendors. So this also should be covered. Otherwise, it also might create a bottleneck for you if you're delaying payments, or if it's too expensive for you to pay freelancers which work for you from all around the world, and you have to deal with a lot of payment methods. And then it's delivery, which allows you to seamlessly get the content back into your content repositories and content silos from the translation process without having to manually copy and paste from Excel spreadsheet to your website, for example. So these 5 components are what we call connected translation. We're going to be focusing mostly on delivery and connectivity during the rest of this webinar, just because it's most often is the first step for you to deal with the content. And the other components like management, scalability, and payments are most likely you have an understanding of what it is. Even the most simple translation process requires that. So I think you more or less have an understanding of how it works in Smartcat. So let's see how delivery and connectivity actually helps us to build continuous processes. We will be taking a close look today at the example of web content management systems. Content management system is a software which usually stands behind every website and stores all the information, all the data, and renders the web pages, which are then sent to the user's web browsers. So any internet site you open most likely have a content management system behind it. They can be server-based, they can be cloud-based. Nowadays, they are mostly going cloud. Companies are not hosting CMSs on their services that often as it was previously. And this diagram here shows us the distribution between adoption of different types of CMS in today's internet. So we can see that there's a huge gap between the leader, which is WordPress, and occupies an astonishing 60% of the global market. Then there's two CMSs, which are Joomla and Drupal. They also have a pretty significant amount of market occupied. So those three are called like the leaders, and they are general purpose content management systems. And then there's a longer tail of smaller content management systems, which are either built by a bigger vendor, like for example, FrontPage from Microsoft, which was aggressively sold before as a part of the huge company automation stacks from Microsoft. There's Adobe Dreamweaver from Adobe. There's Bitrix, which is like heavily regional content management system. It has a huge coverage in Eastern Europe and CIS. And there's also, we can also see different CMSs which are built around specific target, like for example, or specific vertical, I better say, like Magento, which is Magento and Shopify, which are content management systems for running e-commerce websites. There's also Blogger, which was initially a content management system built for blogs, but now it's getting closer to a general purpose content management system. So it's a huge variety, but I hope this gives you a little bit of understanding of what is there in the market. And since we have such clear leaders in general purpose content management systems, most likely you are using one of them, or anyone you are speaking to is actually using one of them. So this is how it works. Let's see what we have in terms of connectivity from Smartcat to these systems. Here, this slide represents the connectors we already have in place. So we are covering WordPress, and we will be going briefly through the demo today, show you how it works. We have Drupal. We also have Bitrix, which I mentioned. We also have Magento. Hopefully, we also managed to show it to you today briefly. Joomla, and those are the content management systems. Then we have Zapier. Zapier is cloud software which allows you to connect your product to a huge variety of products. So you can look at it as a universal connector. The fact that Smartcat is integrated with Zapier actually allows you to integrate with things like cloud storages, like Google Drive, like Box, Dropbox. It also allows you to integrate with emailing email clients like email, for example. And there's also a huge variety of tools supported by Zapier. In case you have some specific requirements, some specific system you're using, we can together take a look if it's supported by Zapier. If it is, then you can also integrate it with Smartcat through Zapier. And then the last but not the least is the integration with software development repositories. It's Git compatible repositories, which is GitHub, GitLab. There's also a code bucket from Atlassian. So there's actually a huge variety of cloud storages, and you can also have Git repository installed inside. So basically any piece of software developed nowadays, the code of it is stored and managed by the team inside such a Git compatible repository. So we also have a full automation with this kind of software. It's more difficult to demo, so we will be demoing the web applications today, specifically WordPress and Magento. If you are dealing with software development, I definitely encourage you to take a look at our case studies on our blog, which describes how Smartcat connectors can actually make the process of localizing software from a painful and slow one into continuous and automated. Before we get to demo, can we please launch the poll to understand how, if you see the match here, if you have systems which are working on connectors we were featuring? By the way, I'm not sure if we're allowing to choose multiple systems. Is that the case, Kate? Do you know?
No, it's sorry, it's just please select one. Yeah, it's not a
Okay,
multiple choice, so you can only choose one.
okay.
But in case you need
But
some other system, you can all specify it in the chat box. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just let us know through any channel, and that's obviously a case. So there's obviously you can have multiple systems, and you might be interested in integrating both between the systems and with external providers and external systems. So that's definitely possible. Yeah. Other. By the way, we should also have added none option. Might also be the case, right?
Okay, Git. Ah, we can see Git here.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
we didn't
think
add it to the poll.
we can
If you
close.
have
Yeah.
it, you can just. Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead. Thanks
Okay.
for your
Thank
votes.
you.
And what can we actually do if the system is not listed in the compatible connectors? In this case, we have an open API, same as a lot of products and software systems these days. So you can definitely look into integrating your process or your content repository anyway through Smartcat Open API. All right, so that's mostly it with the theoretical part. Let's get to the demo and see how it looks live. Just give me a second to switch to another tab. You should continue to be able to see my browser right now. And as I mentioned, we will go through the demo of two integrations today. Let us start with WordPress. By the way, it was a leader in our poll. So hopefully this should be useful. All right, so this how, first of all, before we get deeper into WordPress, I have to mention that WordPress doesn't have a native internationalization capabilities, which means that to be able to to deliver your website in multiple languages, you have to use one of the plugins which are there on HubSpot, or excuse me, on WordPress. And there are two clear leaders, which are WPML and Polyline. I believe these two combined cover close to 90% of all the WordPress websites which are localized, which means that most likely you will be dealing either with Polyline or with WPML. Good news are that we have connectors for both. And today we will be going through the WPML case. And you can take a look at Polyline integration demo on our YouTube channel, or just drop us a link. We will definitely be happy to showcase you that. So here's the basic demo WordPress website. WordPress is historically also growing from blogging software. So this is why they still have this concept of posts. And WordPress is basically a collection of posts. And let us briefly switch and see how it looks from the management standpoint. So I'm gonna log into the admin panel of this particular instance. Just give me a second here. Here we go. Admin panels of the majority of the content management systems look pretty the same. It gives us the ability to see the dashboard. Here's the WordPress dashboard. It allows us to see what's happening on our website, and it also has a collection of links to manage types of content which you have here. So this is the left. The left is the main menu of this admin panel. Here we see the link to manage the posts of our Drupal website. We can also manage other types of content, which are media, pages of our website, users, etc. So as I mentioned, you need to install a special localization plugin to your WordPress website to be able to represent it in several languages. In this case, it's WPML. When you install WPML on top of your WordPress website, it adds this icon here, and this list is a collection of links to WPML functionality. We will be going through translation management tab here, and it has several subtabs. We start from translation dashboard. This is a collection of posts, pages, and other items which are available for localization on this particular website. This website has 4 languages enabled. English is the source, and then we have French, German, and Italian. And for all the pieces of content we have on this website, we can see whether it is or not localized into a particular language. And what we can also do from here is send pieces of content for translation. Before we jump into that, let's also take a look at other tabs. Here we have the translation roles tab, which is a core WPML functionality which allows you to add your internal translators to translate right on WordPress website. I would not recommend using this approach at scale because of the fact that you are not able to use any translation technology in this case. So if you're using Smartcat, you're aware that translation memories can allow you to help close to 50% of your efforts or more, depending on what content you're translating. It also allows you to be more consistent. It also allows you to invite different teams, different vendors, members of your internal team to work with the content. These capabilities will most likely be way less accessible when you're using the WPML built-in functionality. Then we have this translation services tab, which lists the services connected to WPML. In this case, we see Smartcat. Smartcat is connected to this particular instance. Let me just quickly explain how connecting Smartcat to WordPress works. What I'm going to do is disconnect Smartcat from this particular instance of WordPress and go ahead and log into our Smartcat demo account to show you how this particular account can be connected to this WPML instance. What we need, I'm not going to be demoing the Smartcat extensively during this demo for the sake of time. I assume you have at least a little bit of understanding of how it works. So to connect this instance of Smartcat to WordPress, we need to go to the API section under settings. And here we have the account ID, which is the unique ID of this particular Smartcat account. And we're going to go ahead and click Authenticate Smartcat with this WordPress instance. So we put this account ID here. Second thing we need is the API key, which authenticates this WordPress instance under your Smartcat account. We're going to add a name here. So let it be WordPress WPML demo. I'm going to copy the key and confirm it. So this is the second parameter I'm adding to configure Smartcat with WPML. It's the API key. And the last we need here is the server URL. We're going to be using the US instance of Smartcat in this case. If you're using another one, you need to change the URL a little bit. Just give me a second. Copy it from here. Here's the URL for the US instance, and you'll be updating if you're using EU instance. Obviously, this part, which is EU instead of US. So we're submitting this and see that our service is activated. This is the way to connect WPML to your particular Smartcat account. All right, so since we are connected, let's go ahead and see how adding and updating content works. This is the front end of the website, as we saw. By the way, if we go to the bottom of the website, we see the list of languages here, which this site supports. So this block is added by our WPML plugin. Let me just go ahead and add new post here. Let's just grab some piece of content for us to be able to fill the fields here. So post is basically a title and a collection of pieces of text, images, etc. associated to it. I need quickly some article. Let's use this as an example. I'll take the heading and put it under our post here. So this is the heading of our article, and we're also going to be adding other pieces of content. And I'll briefly explain how formatting works here. So if we select a block of content, we can apply different formatting to it, like making it, for example, heading, changing the size of this, changing the size, and we can then continue adding other pieces of content, like the main content of this article. Here we go. So here's a very brief example of creating the post under WordPress. I'm not going to be adding a huge amount of content since we will need to translate it in Smartcat. So for it not to take a lot of time, I'm going to publish it right away. And when we publish the post, it immediately becomes available on our website. Let us just go ahead and see it there. The current settings for WordPress actually pushed all the content to all the localized versions in the English format. So here's the article we just added right here. Let me just briefly click on French version, for example, and we can see that the article is also available there, but in English. It's up to you actually. You can choose not to publish content on your localized versions before it's completely translated, etc. This is just the settings of our particular WPML and WordPress instances. So what we're going to do right now is go ahead under the WPML section of our menu in the admin panel, and we're going to go ahead and see all types of content available, and we should see our post right here. Here it is. We just added it, and we see that it's not currently localized into any languages. So what I'm going to do is just select it and use this bottom block of functionality to actually send it for translation. Here we have several options. We can choose, for example, not translate German version and send just 2 languages. Let's just do it to see how it works. And I'm clicking on sending this content for translation, which adds it to another tab, which is Translation Basket. So it contains everything scheduled for translation before it's actually sent for translation. We see that there was something already in the translation basket here. We're not going to be sending it. Probably it's from some previous demonstration. So this is our post. prepared for localizing into English and from English into French and Italian. We have some statistics here on what's the amount of words. We have some options to actually choose here, and here we can then go ahead and send all items for translation. WPML will show us some small progress bar right here, and as soon as this is actually what it takes, literally several clicks, and the content is already available in Smartcat. I'm going to click on continue to Smartcat right now. What the connector does, it opens the corresponding project in Smartcat, and we should see our files added right there for translation. So here's the project. Here we see our articles already created under this project in Smartcat for translation into French and Italian. We see that the status is created. So let's go ahead and quickly, once again, demoing the Smartcat interface is not the main subject today. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to be using machine translation here this time. And what I'm also going to do, just to speed things up, is pre-translate all the content using this machine translation and confirm the segments. All right, let's return to files. We can see that the status now is already pre-translated. So let's go ahead and start with French file and open it in Smartcat editor. This is how our file looks in the editor. We see all the segments here. We see current status, and if we're speaking about translation process, obviously updates will be made here to post-edit this machine translation. For the sake of time, as I mentioned, we're just going to confirm all the segments here. We just confirmed it on translation stage of the process. Now we're confirming it on proofreading stage of the process, and we see that all the segments are done and confirmed. Last thing we need to do to translate this post into French is actually click this done button. The status for this post is completed. Let's take a look at how it looks under the project tab. We see that these two two versions of our post is still here, but French one is currently under the completed status, which means that it started its travel back to the WordPress website. While it travels back, let us briefly confirm the Italian version too, the same way we did for the French one. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to be confirming all the segments in Italian version 2. All right, so it's confirmed. I'm clicking done, and it's also completed. Let us take a look back at the WPML. The last tab I wasn't speaking about is translation jobs right here. So we see that it has a little bit weird sorting, so we have to change it every time to see the last edit items on the top. So we see here our article that it's been added and set for translation, and that's current status is in progress. So if we give our WPML instance another minute, the status will update. In progress means that we are currently translating it in Smartcat. Say you send 10 posts for translation, you will be able to monitor how it goes on in Smartcat with translation progress not leaving your WordPress administration panel. I'm going to refresh it. We will have to once again change the sorting here. We see that statuses are updating in real time. For example, for the French version of our article, which we completed first. The status is already updating, and obviously we're going through this process very fast. But if you're involving professional translators, it will take more time, and these statuses will, you don't have to like monitor it too often, right? So you can just take a look a couple of times a day. So we see that for the French version, the status is already completed, which means that WPML already synced the article back from Smartcat. Please pay your attention that we didn't do anything in particular for it. So what we did was sending from the admin panel for translation to Smartcat. Then after the translators did their job there, no additional involvement was needed. The articles are back here, at least for the French version. Let's go ahead to the website and see quickly how it looks. Remember, we took a look at the French version of the website before we sent things for translation. We had settings which actually published our article right there without translation. Here we see that the article is already translated. And we also have all the formatting maintained, so nobody had to deal manually with marking the content into heading format, like into heading, formatting, adding, or anything to the translated article. That was maintained during the interaction of WPML and Smartcat. So let's just do a final refresh here and see that our Italian article is also back. Yep, here it is. So what we have right now is the Italian and French versions of the article are already published. The German one stays in English. That's because we didn't send it for translation intentionally. If you remember, we were playing with the settings there and not choosing German for translation. So if we go to the German version of our WordPress website, it just displays here in English. So this is basically it. The main points I wanted to stress once again is that we didn't deal with any exports, we didn't deal with any formatting. What we did was just regular process of creating the content on WordPress website, then sending it for translation in a couple of clicks. Then translators did their job using all the necessary technology. It can be translation memory, terminology, machine translation. It can be collaboration, and this progress was efficiently reflected in the admin panel of our WordPress website. And then after the job was completed, we didn't have to do anything to get the content back and published on the website. So this is it for WordPress. And let me see the timing here. I would suggest we don't go through Magento demo today. I know that there are Magento users. Please, we will definitely be sending you demos which are recorded for Magento separately. They are, as I mentioned, available on our YouTube channel. The idea is the same. What I like to stress about Magento demo is that it allows you to send items for translation right from your product catalog, which is pretty useful and handy. All right, so since we're done here with our demos, let's briefly go to some things up here on the presentation side. So connectors allows us to build these two components, which are connectivity and delivery. And Smartcat as a platform delivers all the rest in terms of being able to manage projects, to scale it to the necessary extent, pay freelancers, etc. So what you get after the content is synchronized is you're able to access all these translation technologies for free. You're also free to organize the team you want in the way you want. It can be your internal translation team, it can be translation vendors or freelancers, and you can also pay using our easy, fast, and paperless payment process. Once again, getting back to the values of connected translation, we started with pains, which originate from from difficult and inefficient previous age translation processes. With connected translation, you're definitely able to communicate with your customers and users faster. Your time to market is not blocking you from growing, and localization processes you build are transparent and easy to control. One more thing our users actually benefit a lot is that using Smartcat allows you to build a technology savvy company, which means that your internal translation team, your content management team is actually working with a cutting edge tool set, which increases their motivation. So I actually like this part a lot. So hopefully it will also be helpful for you in building your business and building your localization process. Okay, so here we have some next steps in case you find things relevant. What can you actually do to start using it? You can, as I mentioned, the tool set itself, Smartcat, all the basic technologies and the integration connectors, everything is free. You don't need to download it. You just log in and start trying it, start using it, start installing connectors into your WordPress, Magento, Drupal, whatever system you are using, connecting it to Smartcat in the way I demoed it today. You can also find videos on our YouTube channel which explain how any content repository we have connector for can be connected to your Smartcat account. In case you need detailed user manuals, you can drop a line as a reply to this webinar invitation or directly to my email here, and we will send you more information. In case you are interested in connecting with some systems which are not listed yet, which don't have connectors, please also let us know. We have several projects undergo when we connect companies with Smartcat development partners, which help them build connectors for new systems using the Smartcat API, or it will definitely in any way help us to prioritize our internal development too. So please let us know if you want to be connected to something which was not listed or demoed today. So the last question, Kate, can you please pull it up before we get into the this is pretty easy, so I hope it will not.
Yes, it's here. It's hard to choose. We understand. Yeah. It's really hard. There are very different options, but we believe that you can do this.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, we're receiving pretty different answers. Okay.
Yeah. So I believe we can close this call and really get into Q&A here. So in case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll also switch the slides to the last one.
Yeah, we left just a few minutes, but we have one question. It's about if we have a connector for Atlassian Confluence, but maybe I will make it more general. Can you explain, in case we don't have a connector, what will be the process to establish it? You already mentioned our partners, but
exactly.
Maybe more details.
I just went through it, and exactly Atlassian is the case when we have an Atlassian partner we're working with. Right now, we are very interested in specific user scenarios. So in case you have an automation running on any Atlassian product, please let us know. We are now gathering the requirements, and the partner will most probably be delivering the connector. In case you have a project when it's like you really need it, then we can discuss building this connector for you faster than our regular development process. But Atlassian is a bright example of what I was speaking about in terms of getting you connected with partners who can develop connectors for you.
Thank you. So if you have any questions, I don't see any, and we actually have run out of time. So, okay, anyway, you have an email of Anton, so you can send him any questions you have. Maybe then we should finish. Yeah.
Yeah, we will also send a follow-up
Okay.
email, so there will be all
Yeah.
the
And okay.
all the links, all the emails.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, for your participation. At the end, when we close this presentation, you will see the post-webinar survey. Please spend just a minute and answer very quick 4 questions. It will really help us to be better, to make a better webinars for you. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Yep,
everybody.
thanks. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Anton.
Thank you for your
Bye-bye.
time. Hope it was helpful. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.
Have a nice day.